Thank you, Roger. I appreciate you. Welcome to Calvary Baptist Church. I'm so glad you're here this morning. If you guys haven't heard, I don't really follow sports, but I do keep track when West Virginia loses. I had to, it's just, I did. After you posted that photo on Facebook, whew. Them fighting words. I don't know. My wife put me up to it, and she'll be happy now. So we are in our series called The Big Story, and we've been walking through the Bible from Adam, and we're trying to get to Joseph. And the big story this week is that God is trustworthy. And I feel like in the Old Testament, we keep seeing this over and over and over again. If you read the Old Testament and you try to make anybody a hero other than God, it's not going to work. And the Old Testament isn't about Abraham. It's not about Moses. It's not about Aaron. It's not about Adam and Eve. It's not about the snake. It's about God, the Father, being God, loving broken, messed up people and putting his family back together again through his supernatural power and grace and mercy. And it's just amazing. And today we will see Abraham and Sarah reacting out of fear and God responding with mercy and grace. So in Genesis 20, it says, "From there, Abraham journeyed toward the territory of Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. And he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, 'She's my sister.' And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah." Now, maybe you're thinking you're having deja vu. Haven't I heard this message before? Is this a repeat? Is Ron tricking me? No, I'm not. This also happened in Genesis 12 when they went to Egypt. He said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to tell us tell them that you're my sister." This is their plan for what to do when they go to a new place. And this is back in Genesis 12, when he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, "I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but they'll let you live. And say that you're my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake." And Abraham, since Genesis 12, has met Melchizedek. He has had visions, he's had dreams, he's had God Almighty show up in dreams and teach him and lead him and say, "I've got you. I'm going to give you a family. I'm going to make you a great nation." He's received a new name since then. God has changed his name, signifying that transformation, what we would call salvation, or this transformational moment of becoming a new person. And Abraham even had lunch with Jesus. When it says the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, that's Jesus showing up. He had lunch with Jesus, and they talked about Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham just watched Sodom and Gomorrah. Like explosions and destruction. And he knows God's power. And then Genesis 18, he gets to a new place. What does he do? He still does the same old things in the old way. And I tell you all the time, we get good at what we practice. We get good at what we practice. And if we practice lying, then we will get really good at lying. And we'll use it more frequently. If we practice anger and rage, we'll develop the most touchy hair trigger, always ready to explode and go off on someone. We'll get really good at anger, and we'll use it to manipulate and get our way. All the coping mechanisms, whether it's lying and deceit, it erodes trust in us and trust in others. Anger prevents others from giving us the respect that we desperately want, which is why we're probably angry. Because then they're going to lie to our face. They're not going to tell us the truth, which would be honoring and respectful. They're going to give us compliance when you're around, because they don't want to mess with the hassle of you exploding and getting all mad, or me. It's not respectful. Anger doesn't get us respect. Numbing, when we use numbing mechanisms, whether that's eating food or honey buns, binging TV, or drinking, or using substances to numb out, or just scrolling mindlessly on our phones. The problem with numbing strategies when we're going through something difficult is that numbing is not selective. Numbing numbs the whole of us. So maybe we got something going on at work and we're just like, it's too much and I just need to numb out, I can't think about it. We're not just numbing out from work, we're numbing out from our kids. We're numbing out from our husband, wife, our marriage. We're numbing out from our relationship with God. And numbing it's not selective. And that's the problem with numbing strategies. They just don't work and they're too broad and they just take us out of the whole game. They disconnect us from the very community that we need to get through it. They disconnect us from the very God that has the life-giving power and attention to get us through it. And whatever tool we use, we get good at using. And Abraham was good at this little deception thing that they did. And it seemed to work out for him, right? I mean, we do these things because we think they work. In fact, it seems it all works out well for Abraham. God intervenes in verse 3. God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you're a dead man." You are a dead man. Like, this is serious. Like, that's awesome, right? If you ever feel like, man, I gotta stand up and fight my battles because no one else will, don't. God is legit. Like, God is serious. This is scary. He's like, you're gonna die. You think you've had a bad dream. You are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Now, Abimelech had not approached her, which is great. We don't know if Sarah was protected back in Egypt, but we know in Genesis 20 that God gives us this detail, that Abimelech had not approached her. And so Abimelech says, "Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, 'She's my sister,' and she herself said, 'He's my brother'? In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I've done this." And Abimelech's like, I didn't know. Like, I really didn't know. I wasn't trying to be dishonest here. And God has Sarah here. He has her back in this situation with Abimelech. Even though Abraham didn't have his wife's back, God had Sarah's back. God protects her. Never think that you need to step up and step in because nobody else will. God fights our battles. God has our back. God is watching. He is vigilant. God sees. And he holds us in his hands. He carries us through. You might be living in Abimelech's house today, in a situation that just looks like there is no hope. There is no way out. Despair, destruction, just a mess. You might be living in Abimelech's house. And I want you to notice here, God doesn't come to Sarah in a dream. He went to Abimelech in the dream. So as far as Sarah knows, she doesn't see God doing anything. Well, God, are you working? Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I want you to know that God sees your situation. God hears your tears. God knows your pain. God is not turning a blind eye to what's going on in your life, in your heart, in your situation. He is working and moving right now for your protection. And I can say this with confidence because this is who God is. He is a protector. He is a provider. And just because you don't trust God doesn't mean he's not trustworthy. And this is so important for me and for you, because there are moments when we just don't feel like we can trust him. And that doesn't mean that he's not trustworthy. It doesn't mean that he's not doing his job. It doesn't mean that he is not full of power and authority, and that he's not even just working and doing it even though we don't trust it. Abraham was a coward. He did not trust God. And he threw his wife under the bus for the second time. But God was trustworthy. And your situation may not turn out how you want it to be, but through it all, God will be there. And God will be steady. And God will be your rock. And there's this little lie that Satan likes to use to keep us from turning towards God. This is the lie. You are full of it. You're full of it. And this is a lie that Satan loves to put in our hearts and in our minds. You're full of it. You say you're going to trust God this time, but I know when the heat gets hot, you're going to do it the old way. You're going to go crazy. You're going to say stuff you wish you wouldn't have said. You're going to do stuff you wish you wouldn't have said. You're going to turn back to that old way. You're going to go back to drinking. You're going to use. You're going to do whatever you can to manipulate the situation, and you know it, and I know it, and you're full of it. And Satan loves to just pile this onto us. This is who you are. This is what your history says, right? You're going to confess your sin, and then you're going to do it again, just like last time. It's a powerful lie, because half the time it's true. And Satan says to us, you think God's dumb? You're going to really lie to his face. And it erodes our confidence in self, which is a half-truth. Like, we shouldn't have any confidence in ourselves. And just like Abraham used a half-truth to justify a whole lie, he said, she's my sister. And she was his half-sister. They had different moms. Same dad. Let's go, Mountaineers. Oh, sorry. Said over the line. But a half-truth is a whole lie. And Satan tells us that we're full of it. And that's a half-truth. We are not fully trustworthy because we are sinful human beings living in a broken world. We really are. And just because you don't trust yourself doesn't mean that you can't trust God. Just because you don't trust yourself doesn't mean I can't trust God. And Satan wants us to think we have to really mean it. For change and transformation to happen in our lives, we have to really, really mean it this time, which means we have to have 100% certainty, and we have to do it all perfect, and it has to work out exactly the way, and we can't falter, we can't stray, we can't do anything wrong. We've got to really, really, really mean it this time. And if you don't really mean it, then don't even try. And Satan puts that in our minds, that we have to really mean it before we go to God. And to really mean it, we got to show it, which means cleaning up our mess before we go back to God. I need to make sure I'm right. I need to make sure I'm clear. I need to fix what I have done. And then I can go back to church. Then I can go back to small group. Then I can talk to God. Then I can really start to do my devotions like I should. Then I can really trust him. And all that is good. And it's true that we need to fix our stuff. But you can't do any of it without God's supernatural help. If we could clean it up, it'd be clean. We cried, God, change it. And if we could do it, it would have been done. But we can't do it. So we need God. You and I need God to intervene in the mess we have made, or the mess we find that others have made for us. We need God. We desperately need him. And so we have to go to him first. We have to go to him first. A friend of mine gave me a discus launch glider. It's this really beautiful, ornately built airplane that you throw in the air, and it's made out of extremely fragile, like balsa wood fins on the end, the little feathers. It's all like handmade in France. Okay, super expensive. It was an older guy. He gave it to me. He said, I can't throw it anymore. I want somebody to enjoy it. So he gave it to me. I went out. I threw it. Instantly crashed it. Busted up the tail into pieces. And I could repair things, but I couldn't repair this. So I go back to him. The guy's name was Dave. I go back to Dave. Dave, I wrecked it. And he goes, oh. Now, why did I go back to Dave? Because they needed a master skilled repairman. Like, he is this is what he does. He's like really good at this stuff. I needed somebody who knew what they were doing. And so, okay, so well, come on in the shop. Then we go in the shop, he puts it back together, and he sands the thing and glues it back together and does this perfect thing, and it's all perfect again. I'm like, thank you. And then I haven't flown it again. It's in my office on the shelf. You can go look at it. But I needed a master craftsman. This wasn't some TikTok life hack thing where I could just scroll through and figure it out and try stuff. This isn't making macaroni and cheese in the sink, y'all. This is your life. This is a big deal. And I needed an expert. And it's okay to go to God. It's okay to get outside help. Say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. I think I know what to do, but obviously I don't have the skill, or else I would have already successfully done it. So God, help. And God will be with you. He will get you through. He's always been there for me and my family. We have never gone hungry. He's always shown up exactly where and when we needed us. And even when I wasn't there for me, God was there for me. Even when others weren't there for me, God has always been there for me. So what do you do when you're so beat down and broken and you're hurting and you feel like you just don't have the energy to trust God? Well, that's our homework for this week. Number 1, start small. We really need to start trusting God, but we have to start small. Sometimes we just try to trust him with the big stuff, but we really need to start microdosing trusting God. God, I trust you to get me out of bed. For some of you, that is a prayer you need to pray tomorrow. I trust you to get my feet on the floor tomorrow. Or maybe you prayed this before you I trust you to get me out of bed today. God, I trust you to get me to the coffee maker. God, I trust you to get me dressed and showered. Like if you're in a rough part in your life, those are good, valid prayers. That's what you need to be praying. I trust you to get me dressed and showered. I trust you to help me take this next breath, because I don't know if I can. I trust you to get me to work. I trust you to get me to school or to daycare or to gym or whatever. God, I trust you to get me home. I trust you to help me eat. I don't want to eat. I just want to sit and sulk. I trust you to help me put food in my mouth. I trust you to hold my mess while I sleep, so that I can rest. I'm going to pile it up over here, and I need you to watch it so that I can sleep. I trust you. And trusting is so important. So start small. Number 2, trust is a team sport. So rope in someone you know who cares about you and trusts God. Someone you know who's good at trusting God because you've seen them go through their own stuff. And they didn't explode and go off, or even if they did get kind of crazy for a little bit, you saw they stayed steady with God through it. Find that person. Wrap your arms around them, say, help me to get through this. Tell them you're going and you're trying to trust God. Text them to keep in touch throughout the day. Tell them you're trusting God each step. Ask them to pray God will help you to trust him more. And then number 3, this is so important. Seek God's face, not just his hands. See, oftentimes when we're in a mess, we seek God's hands. That means, God, do something. Fix it. I need you to touch them and fix that brain because it's crazy. It's a mess. I need you to change that person. I need you to change this job or the situation. I need you to just magically twinkle the bank account and make the math work. Whatever the situation is, and we want God to use his hands, and we want God to do something, and all our prayers are, God, do something, change this, do 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 this. And nobody wants a marriage like that, and that's not any kind of relationship with God either. In fact, it's easy to focus on what we want God to do. We often forget that the gaze of God in and of itself is nourishing to our eternal soul. There's this blessing from the Old Testament. It says, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Then it says the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. That means turn his face towards you and give you peace. The whole blessing is that God would look at you. That he would put his face on you and he would see you. That's the blessing. And that the result of that blessing is that there would be grace and there would be peace. So when we're in the stuff,
or you can go on to Church Center app.
Do you have any sports ball games this week, Jim? No? When's the next one? When's the next game? Saturday? We'll be praying for you. Let's all stand. We're going to sing a verse and chorus of Glorious Day. I may need someone to escort me off stage. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Amen. Take that with you.